Hello, welcome back to the Little Craft House. If we haven't met before, my name is Nicole and this is my craft room. I've recently been cleaning it up and sorting it out, and I've been emptying out some tubs of craft supplies that I've had stashed for quite a while and things in there that I haven't used and I've forgotten that I've even owned. Anyway, I came across this here, which is a sampler chain of silicone beads that one of our suppliers sent us back when we used to stock silicone beads in our shop. So this has one of every colour that they have to offer. And yeah, I've just had this stashed in a tub for quite a few years now, not having any use for it. So I thought that today we could use it and make some key rings. So even though there's only one of each colour, I've got an idea, so hopefully it works. Yeah, let's go and undo this and make some key rings together. Okay, so I guess first things first, I need to get the beads off of this necklace. So the necklace comes with one of these little pop clasps, which I will cut off so I can use for something else later. Those are the safety type ones, so when you pull on a necklace, it'll just pop undone. But yeah, I'll pop that to the side and use that for a different necklace later. So cutting it open there, I'm just going to slide off all the beads. Now I'm thinking what I'm going to do is I need to organise them all into a colour order of some sort. Oh, apologies, my doggies are running around in the background there. I guess if you're wondering what type of beads these ones are, they are actually called a lentil bead. So they are similar to the abacus style bead, but they are a little bit different. They're kind of a little bit more pointed around the edge rather than being rounded like an abacus bead would be. We ended up not placing an order for these beads, which is why I just had the sampler necklace sitting around and why I don't have any others of these beads to use. So I'm going to try my hardest. Hopefully the design will work with different shades of the beads. So I'm just going to group them together in similar colours, and from there we'll pick out what we're going to use. Okay, so I don't know about you, but I actually really enjoy sorting, so that was actually quite a fun little process. Right, so the things that we're going to need today to create our keyring, other than the beads, is I have a beading needle. This is quite a long one. If you don't have a beading needle, you might have one of these, which is a loop turner. That's got the little hook on the end. I've lost my little safety clicky bit that goes on it, but it still works, that's fine. We're also going to use some cord. I've got a 1mm nylon thread. So this one is in the rainbow colours, which I thought would match in perfectly considering we're going to be using multicoloured today. Nylon's really good because if it starts to fray on the end, you can always just burn the tip a little bit. It'll melt it and then it forms that hard end, which makes it so much easier to thread through your pieces. So I'm going to cut about 60 centimetres of that cord. It'll probably be way too much, but it's better to have too much than not enough. I've also got my lobster clasp keyring here. Here's quite a little chunky one and it's got that big ring on the bottom which we'll attach our design to. Next up, I need to decide on which coloured beads that I'm going to use. So we're going to be doing a triple flower design and each flower is going to need 5 beads. So I'm going to have plenty of beads left over to do another design later with the leftovers, so nothing is going to go to waste. And because I'm using multiple colours, I'm going to try and use really opposite colours of each other to hopefully make this design stand out. So what I'm thinking is that I'm going to go with the pinks, the blues, and the yellows. And if I kind of do them in that order there, so pink down into blue, down into yellow, hopefully that will stand out nicely. If I had more of the same colour for each flower, I would do a different shade and that would look awesome, I think. But today we're going to go multicoloured. Okay, so I grabbed from my stash a couple of these round beads. I wasn't sure at the time if I was going to use them or not. I do end up using them at the base of my keyring to secure the knot. But yeah, so I grabbed those out, so they are there as well to add to the collection of beads. Our next step that we are going to do is get our cord and attach it to the keyring. So we want to make sure that the ends are nice and even at the bottom, and then come up to the center of the cords where we should have a loop. Going to get the ring of our keyring and pass that loop through the keyring. And then from the center of the loop, we're going to grab the tails of that cord and pull it through. This is my preferred way to knot onto my keyring. If you have another way that you would prefer, go right ahead and do that way. This is just my preferred way that I do it. Okay, so we're going to get ready to start threading our beads on. So if you would prefer to tape your keyring onto your surface so that it's not moving around too much, you can definitely do that. It doesn't move too much for me, so I'm not too bothered about doing that, but I do understand sometimes it can get a bit frustrating as it moves around. So yeah, just tape it down if that becomes an issue for you. So I've separated my two tails of the string here, and I'm now going to start threading on my beads. So I'm going to take the first 3 from my pink collection and add them onto one side, like so. And then on the second side, I'm going to add the other 2 pink ones. If you find using the beading needle or the loop turner easier in this stage, go right ahead and use it. I tend to find that if you've chosen a thicker cord, that's when you do sometimes need the assistance. As this is 1mm, they do tend to thread on quite easily. Okay, so we want to bring those beads right up to the top where the ring is on both sides. I'm then going to take the string that has the 2 beads on it. So I'm going to grab the end of that string, like so. And I'm going to pass it up through the bottom of the 3rd bead on the first side. So I'm going to pull it through like that, and then we're going to pull the cords so that our beads end up looping around like that and creating our first flower. And so that base bead there should have a cord coming out of either side of it. We're now going to repeat the pattern again using our next set of colours. So I'm going to use the blue beads, and on the first string, again, just threading our first 3 beads on. And then on the opposite side, we're going to do the next 2 beads. Now, I should mention that with the beads, you can use different beads for this project. The end design will just look slightly different. And I always like using silicone beads because they're a little bit squishy and you're able to pull them nice and tight and close together. So I'm just going back up through the base of that 3rd bead again, like so. So we've got the cord coming out of each side. Let me just straighten this up. So a cord coming out of each side, and we're just going to pull each of those cords to move that flower up. And there we go, it's now sitting in that position. So we have our first 2 flowers. And again, we're just going to repeat the whole thing again with our yellow beads. So popping those first 3 beads on the first side. And then 2 on the second side. And then passing that cord through the base of that 3rd bead. And now I've only done this with 3 colours, but you can do it longer. If you were going to do the same design but for a necklace or a dummy chain or a belt or something similar, you could just keep going with this pattern. Okay, so just because we're doing the 3 flowers, we now need to secure this all into position. So I'm going to get my 2 cords again, just making sure that's nice and tight. I'm going to get my 2 strings, equal at the bottom. Again, if it's easier to use the beading needle or the loop turner, do so for this step because you're now adding 2 strings through the bead. And I'm going to grab that round bead and we're going to pass the strings through that round bead. And we're just going to pull it up nice and tight to the base of that 3rd flower. And then I'm just going to tie it off. And I'm just going to use a normal, simple double knot. And I'm just going to try and keep it as tight as I can at the base so that there's not too much movement for those flowers. And if you wanted to add a little dab of glue onto that knot just to help secure it in place, you could definitely do that. I'm not going to, I'm just going to make sure that it's a nice tight double knot. And then I'm just going to trim the ends. And then if you want to stop the ends from fraying, just burn the ends, just with a little flame. You can burn the ends, makes the tips solid, or you could put a little dab of glue onto the ends as well, and that would also stop them from fraying. And there we go, our triple flowered keyring. So glad I was able to use those beads for something useful and pretty. Well, thank you so much for joining me today. I hope you've enjoyed this little tutorial. I'll be back again next week with some more crafty tutorials. So I'll see you then. Bye!